Okay. Great. Okay, I'm going to stand.
You're going to stand, I'm going to sit. We're going with our comfort
Okay, we're going with our comfort zone. Okay, great. Welcome. Yeah.
I'm so sorry. Forgive me.
No, no forgiveness. No forgiveness happening here. All right, hi guys. I know we're in the post-lunch coma will set in here as we're talking, so that's cool. But we won't make you get up. We won't make you do calisthenics. We won't make you, kind of run around the building or anything. But hopefully what we're going to talk about will be interesting, engaging a little bit so that we can kind of keep you guys awake and show you some cool things that we've been doing in the Engaging Networks platform. So today, Lesley and I'm Jen, and we'll introduce ourselves. We're going to talk a little bit about how to do a lot of the cool things that are in the Engaging Networks platform without becoming too overwhelmed by all the greatness that is in this platform. There's a lot in there, and it can go down a lot of different rabbit holes for you, but you can get lost sometimes down in these little channels and cubbies down in the different spaces as you're kind of learning the platform and getting in a little bit deeper and learning more. So we're going to talk about how you might prioritize all your needs, how you might then customize the tool to fit your specific needs, and then implement the solutions that will work really well for your organization. We're going to talk a little bit about what we've done with a specific client to help them get up and running and be successful on the platform. We're Firefly partners. We've been a partner with Engaging Networks for, I feel like I met Graham like a decade ago or something silly. And been working with Clint and the team for quite a long time, kind of working in the platform, implementing new folks into the platform, and helping folks kind of with a variety of digital solutions. I'm actually based in Colorado. Lesley's based in Seattle, she'll tell you that. Our team is distributed across the US. And we do lots of just digital solutions with nonprofits, and we work exclusively with nonprofits, progressive nonprofits really, but kind of nonprofits of all sizes too. We do websites and digital strategy and engagements and email campaigns and a variety of stuff. And we work in a lot of nonprofit-specific digital platforms like Engaging Networks and help people get up and running, help you kind of find the platforms, get up and running and be successful, and then help do great work in the platform over time. And so I'm Jen Frazier. I started Firefly in 2007 after a decade of working at National Planned Parenthood on a bunch of digital variety of projects. Started Firefly really specifically to, you're back again.
I'm the worst person.
You are the worst person ever.
I've interrupted you twice and now I'm leaving. You should just throw a glass of water on me.
It's okay. We'll catch you later. It's okay if you have to go. I understand. It's okay.
This is a sincere promise. I will now buy both of you a drink at the happy hour.
Everybody heard it?
Everybody got that.
It's good, right? No problem with that. So I'm based in Colorado. Our team is based all over the country. Now that Lesley, you can introduce yourself.
Yep. So I'm a web developer with Firefly. I've been with Firefly for 8 years now. And before that, I was with National River Conservation Group for just over a decade working on their online tools. So have been in the space for a long time. I focus primarily on these online tools and kind of doing custom work with them. So taking them a little beyond what they're supposed to do out of the box, which is what we'll be showing you in future slides.
Yeah, cool. So today we are going to talk again about a particular client that we have and sort of taking sort of what starts off when you come into the Engaging Networks platform for the first time. You kind of feel like, oh, there's all this stuff in here. I feel a little overwhelmed. I want to figure out how I hone in on the right things. I prioritize the right things. I basically make a laundry list and hit things off at the right order. And so you kind of say, great, I want to help you. We help clients come in and sort of say, let's talk about not just your organizational goals, but your digital goals and sort of make a plan for you. And so you don't feel so like, oh my God, I need to do everything at the same time, or I'm not sure where to start. There's too many things to look at and too many things to think about. Kind of come in and say, great, don't get overwhelmed. Let's try and take a moment. Let's brainstorm. Let's prioritize your projects. Let's make sure we know what's first, second, and third. We'll give you sort of we want to hear your priorities, but we also will give you our best practices. We've done this with a lot of different clients, and we say, really, you should set the foundation before you build your walls and all that sort of stuff. So we want to make sure we're helping you think through the projects in the right order, because sometimes we look at an organization that comes in and they want to kind of get all the way down the road for put the cart before the horse a little bit. So we kind of say, great, that's a good goal, but we're going to kind of reorganize this and maybe reprioritize some things with you and maybe put some of the simpler things first, help you get familiar, comfortable with the platform, and then we can build on some customizations and complexity after the case so that you're not trying to do too much, go too complex, too tricky right out of the gate. And then we'll customize it for you and help you learn how to manage your stuff as much as you need or want to do on your own. With some of that customization, some of it can get a little bit tricky. You might get into some code area, but try and make it as manageable as possible for your comfort level of your team. And then get that implemented and get it up and running for you so you feel successful and you can measure some wins. So today we're going to talk about work that we did with the Huntsman Cancer Foundation over the last year and a half or so, and sort of some things we're in the process of doing now and stuff that we have planned to do with them going forward. So the Huntsman Cancer Foundation is based in Salt Lake, and as you can read, the foundation sort of is obviously the arm that raises money for the institute doing the research and trying to cure cancer. It's a lofty goal, but thank goodness somebody's doing it. And they have a lot of fun in the face of what can be obviously very daunting work, looking at staring cancer in the face and saying, okay, we're going to help. Not only are we going to try and continue to find cures, we're going to help the patients, the family and the friends and the network of the patients, but also really bringing in the caregivers and thinking about the whole community around the cancer patient, essentially, and sort of trying to think about that whole experience in different ways that they can help raise money, raise awareness, and keep people excited and energized around a terrible disease. So I actually met Jackie at an Engaging Networks conference in DC in the fall of 2017. And we met, and they had just sort of started getting going on the platform earlier that year. And she had like 1,000 things that she wanted to do. Again, like she was looking at this platform, she's like, oh my God, there's this great stuff. How can we do it all? And so she had a couple of priorities right out of the gate, which was she knew she wanted to redo some of the email work that they were doing and do a little bit more segmentation because they hadn't really been doing any. And she knew, generally speaking, that she probably wanted to get up a DIY peer-to-peer event because they hadn't done that, and they do some physical events. But we started kind of going through more of a discovery process with her, and we sort of got into this more of a laundry list. Other things started to come up. She started to go, oh, great, but also, great, I know that if we do email, we probably want to update the donation form. It's maybe showing its age. We want to update that. Oh, right, and then we've heard that there's this great supporter hub that Engaging Networks has. We should use that. And yes, we want to do DIY peer-to-peer, but we also want to we want to maybe redo our other peer-to-peers and all that stuff. So we're like, okay, slow down. And we kind of, again, brought her into we did a little bit of brainstorming. We kind of got her to list all out her priorities. And then we were able to sort of sit down and sort of, okay, great, what's a first step that we can take to help you sort of bite a little bit off? Don't bite off too much. Kind of, again, start thinking about processes that we can do together that will make it a little more, bite-sized along the way, so it isn't too much. So we kind of mapped out their goals, and then we prioritized sort of like, okay, let's start with your email. Maybe then that leads to the donation form. Maybe we'll get to the supporter hub, and that DIY was going to maybe be on a parallel track, but we wanted to go with some of the more basic supporter information first in the email. So that was how we started, and then we knew that we were going to kind of have a parking lot along the way while we work with them. Because again, as you move into a new platform, how many folks have been on the Engaging Networks platform for more than a year? So most everybody's kind of been on it for a little while, so you kind of know enough. How many are new or gonna move on to the platform? Okay, because there's a lot in there, which is great. But yeah, you kind of have to sort of map out like what are going to be my steps along the way to help our team become more familiar, and just to sort of get that like baseline of comfort. It's a different kind of layout than sometimes you're used to. Our tools are in slightly different places. You just sort of got to get feel your way around a little bit and get that baseline of comfort as you kind of think about adding complexity. So we always have these parking lots of ideas that come up, and then we come back into that. We kind of strategize again, kind of take stock, look what's on the parking lot list, and then reprioritize and come up with a new plan for going in that next stage. So again, we started off with email. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about sort of just high-level approach, and then Lesley, as our developer, is going to kind of talk about some of the customizations that we then did once we kind of talked through the overall goals and hopes for the client and sort of some of the things they wanted to do. So again, Huntsman had not really done a lot of email, I think, which is not super typical for clients that we work with. They really had kind of just done like blast emails to like their whole list. They weren't doing a lot of segmentation. They weren't really getting very deep into who's on our list besides these general categories of like patients versus maybe family members versus caregivers. Even though they knew those different categories of people were on the list, they hadn't really figured out how to segment and message and do targeted messaging for any of those groups, or trying to cultivate and have like a journey for each of those audiences. They were just sort of like, here's an email, and they kind of sent it to everybody. And they only did a few emails a year. And so we said, okay, we want to try and think about different segmentation opportunities and different maybe email formats and a different way to package and put out the information about your organization, because you're doing, again, a lot of great stuff and you're having great results. I don't know that if a lot of people that are on your list really even know all the great stuff you're doing and some of the great results you're seeing. So we started off with doing a redo to their email, and we decided, and we talked them into doing a newsletter. They were kind of a little shy about doing a newsletter because they thought it'd be too labor intensive. So they really were like, it has to be easy to use for us. It has to be easy for us to get out. We can't have a huge impact on the staff. And we need to have a mixture of sort of this new information about us, but also updates to what is going on, so people who are familiar with us. They were trying to do this two audiences at once, sort of new folks who maybe come onto the list and existing folks who might be more familiar with the organization. They wanted to sort of say, great, you maybe been hearing about this program that we're working on, giving updates. So they decided that a newsletter format would be the best for that. So Lesley can talk a little bit about the newsletter and sort of some of the things we did to sort of help meet some of those needs.
Yeah. So with the newsletter, really we wanted to capitalize on the tools that Engaging Networks already has in place. So the things with A/B testing, customizing messages for the audiences, that sort of thing. We wanted to make sure they were using them kind of to the best of their abilities, as well as making the newsletter look and feel like their organization. So we did a new design for them, did some simple things like put a donate button top of the page. They didn't have that sort of thing yet. Used compelling imagery for it and set it up in a way that they actually were able to, once we trained them, manage it through the WYSIWYG. So we built it using custom HTML, but built it in such a way that they could use the WYSIWYG to edit it. And so, for example, with the newsletter, they discovered that they didn't really have to write big, long articles for a newsletter. They had existing content. So they were able to use this template we put together to come up with a monthly email and send it out with not a whole lot of trouble for themselves, and also use the tools like making the versions based on audience and that sort of thing. So they definitely took advantage, and we helped them take advantage of the built-in tools, but then also enhanced it a bit just to make it work a little bit better for them and their goals.
Cool. Next one.
Yep.
Okay.
So we wanted, again, to have it to be easy for them to use. We wanted to make it so that it looked really good. And this is one of the things that I think is great about Engaging Networks, is that their platform lets you have these sort of mobile-friendly, really good-looking messages without having to work in plain code view, which some of the other tools, really, to get a more robust look, you have to be able to be comfortable to work in HTML, and not everybody has that capacity on their staff. So we wanted to meet them where they were at, give them something that they could manage, and we were able to do that for them. We also helped them do things like add in tracking codes. So there's built-in tracking ability, but you can also take that a step further with Google Analytics, and we help them do that for all the links within their emails, and we set that up so it was easy for them to do and train them up to be able to do it. They found a fair amount of success with their new newsletter. They engaged a lot of new major donors with it, and they actually had a lapsed donor who received the email and ended up buying a table at their gala. So, pretty big buy back into their organization, all being solicited through this newsletter that we helped them put together. They also put together a welcome series that they used. So they took a bunch of their offline donors who had provided email addresses in their offline gifts, brought them into the system, and then did a 6-part welcome series to try to get them to convert to being online donors as opposed to being offline donors. So really good opportunity to use this tool they already had to an audience that hadn't really been targeted this way before. So
yeah, so they were able to just use some of the built-in Engaging Networks platform, customization, conditionalization, and targeting for, again, some of these segments that they hadn't really taken advantage of, knowing that information about them, have it be there in the platform and say, great, I can swap out images, I can swap out stories, I can swap out very simple things for different audiences without like major headache, major lift, or having to recreate whole new versions, one by one. You could do pieces of it, and really for the team to be able to swap it out and do the variations for the different newsletters and for the different audiences really has been great success for them. They're super excited, and they've got, again, dreams and plans for next versions, but like this was a good, get them out of the gate, get them understanding what their audiences are, really think about tailoring some of the messaging for those specific audiences, and obviously being able to see good success rate, good conversion rates, good open rates based on kind of tailoring some of that content for their specific audiences. So they feel like this email program was sort of let's just give it a shot because we haven't done this before, and they're super happy with it, and they've got ideas and plans for how to sort of continue to make it even more robust and sort of a little bit more complex as they go on. Again, this was sort of like a phase 1. I'll show you some of the phase 2 and phase 3 stuff they've kind of got in their minds about how they can kind of take it and make it even more complex, different campaigns, and not just sort of the newsletter, how to actually make a little bit more automation come in based on some of the segmentation, sort of building on something like a welcome series, thinking of different ways to automate different journeys and different messaging streams, again, based on some of those different audiences. So they're super pumped about that. So obviously when we were kind of redoing the email, we said, okay, we know that sort of like a big piece of this is trying to help convert folks, again, even into that offline donors into online donors. Next natural place for us to work was to think about updating their donation form. So obviously you have a great looking email, you then want to have the click through, and they follow through, and they get onto a nice mobile responsive donation form that's updated and easy to use with your thumbs on your phone. They didn't have that before either, so they were kind of like trying to catch up too. But so we did a little bit of kind of best practices for them. They had some certain things that they wanted to implement for sure on this, but we said, okay, great, again, let's look about what you need, what you want. Let's make it a little more modern looking. We hope to get it with the big imagery, make it a little more compelling. And again, sort of that, a big piece of this was very much specifically focused on those direct mail folks coming over and trying to help them convert and be comfortable coming into online giving. But then there were some other customizations that we built in.
Yeah, so again, we tried to use a lot of the built-in things that are available to you within the tool. So an example is they really wanted to drive people to monthly giving, which obviously is a good thing to do. So we built the form so that it defaults to monthly, but we use the tools where we could set it up so that when somebody switches from monthly to one time, the donation levels switch as well, so that the appropriate donation amounts for that type of giving. And again, that's something that's built into the tool, so we didn't have to specifically code that in, but we went in and made sure that it was a very seamless experience and made sure that it worked correctly and that the dollar amounts that were coming up were the right ones and that the messages were right. We also wanted to allow them to select where their money was going to go. And so that's further down on the form. Oh, there it is. Yep, they could designate where they wanted their gift and what area of research they wanted to have there. They also really wanted their impact statement there on the right sidebar. So we built that using the built-in shared component library that is part of the tool, so that that can get dropped into any form, but it's managed in one single place. So if a statistic changes or you want to reword something, you're not going into 10 different donation forms to make that update. You're actually just updating it one place, and it then will get updated every place it's put into the tool. So it's again, a lot of the time we were leveraging sort of what is out of the box, but when you're new to a tool or you have a small staff, you don't always have a chance to learn all of those things. And so our expertise can help you kind of take advantage of those things.
Yeah. And again, like they really wanted it to look sharp and be easy on a mobile platform. They know that obviously all the giving that's happening. We have some statistics. Apparently, in the last 3 years, mobile email has grown 180%, and 25% of donors now are giving online. So it's no longer sort of like, oh, it's just young people, or oh, it's, you know, kind of people go and they look and then they come back and then they come over and then they may actually make their donation on maybe a desktop. It's, the numbers are increasing every day about how many people feel comfortable, and the folks that are sort of obviously new givers, going through from the nice mobile formatted email into a nicely formatted donation form, we're seeing those conversion rates just continue to increase. So making it look good, making it easy for your organization to maintain and update all the mobile responsive ready forms, critical to success, and don't want to leave any donors behind, obviously. The other piece here, obviously, is we are getting into the donation form, and as we're really trying to get people into giving monthly, the very next thing that sort of was you know, kind of next on people's minds was, okay, well, how do we manage that monthly giving experience for the donor and for the organization? Because then that can be a total, like, it's a great thing to get somebody to become a monthly giver, but how do I manage, obviously, the expiration of their credit cards and when they roll off, and this can be, you know, a big nightmare. So we started talking to Huntsman about the opportunity to sort of push people to get the supporter hub set up, and then to kind of help the donors understand that that's where they could kind of start moving them into the mindset of like, oh, you can come and manage this yourself in the supporter hub, so you don't ever lose a donor when they're in that monthly subscription and their credit card's about to expire. So you can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we use the marketing automation tool to set up an email that went out 60 days before somebody's credit card would expire, and then another 5 days before it would expire. So it's a reminder to them that their monthly gift will end when that credit card expires. So please go to the hub, which we also set up. So they go into the supporter hub and they have the ability to update their credit card information themselves. So you don't have to have somebody on staff taking a phone call. They don't have to submit an all new donation. They can actually manage it themselves. The supporter hub is an awesome tool, and it gives you a lot of ability to target messages to your supporters, and gives them the ability to really manage things for themselves. They can manage their email subscriptions. They can talk about their interests. So tying back to that interest that somebody sets up when they make a donation, they can also set their interest within the supporter hub. So we're actually in the midst of this, when Jen was talking about our phased work, we set it up initial supporter hub for them a while back, got that expiration email going out, and then we're just in the midst of reworking we're calling it the Hub 2.0, where we're kind of growing the things that they have available to their supporters when they come to the hub.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, and also really it's the two-way street there is also obviously training staff to go, great, look at all the things you can have your supporters update themselves, but you have to make sure that the supporters know themselves. So you're going to have to continue like sort of email and give them hints and ideas about, great, hey, did you know you can also come in here and yes, maybe update, you know, your mailing address, or you can update, you know, your credit card expiration is great. Update your preferences. If you're involved in advocacy, which Huntsman's not, you can come in and also look and see what's, you know, all the different actions you've taken, but you can also, at the organization level, you can put messages into the hub for your supporters to let them know sort of the outcome. So you're like, hey, thanks, we reached our goal, we raised all that money we were asking you for, whatever, you can put that in there, so let people know sort of the status of issues or actions or things like that. So they're not just sort of like, I don't know, I took that action and I don't know whatever ended up happening. Or I don't know, they asked me to raise money for, you know, such and such program. I'm not quite sure how that happened or what the outcome was. The organizations, you guys can come in here, and put in messages basically as kind of blasts out to the supporters and saying, great, here was the outcome, here's how this happened. You can push that out in an email, obviously, but you can also put it just as messages that are displayed here on the hub to let, again, it's a little bit more, makes it a little bit more of like a conversational area, like you're pushing stuff out, they're coming in checking stuff, so that they get familiar with it, they get used to it, and then you really want those supporters coming in and checking here and having it not just be like, every once a year I go and I update my, whatever, or if I have to update my email. They really come in and start using it as sort of a spot that they come in and sort of check ongoing. So you can kind of make this a spot for them. That's why they want it to be this little hub and a little bit more communication. And I know that Engaging Networks is constantly thinking about ways to enhance and improve that supporter hub to make it more of like a center where people log in and sort of there's a communication going on between organizations and their supporters inside the hub. So we're in a little bit of the 2.0 with Huntsman. Yeah.
We briefly discussed this internally, same thing, but the same reason you just mentioned, having the supporters being able to manage their information proactively without us having to be like, oh, we lost it, too bad.
Yeah.
And I think one of the main concerns was how to kind of implement the hub and have it in cohesion with our overall websites. Where does it live? So,
right.
I'd be interested to hear about guys when you guys started to work for that charity, like how they were thinking, how you guys were thinking about how to implement it logically within the website, within the menu, the architecture of the website.
Yep.
Be living.
Did you talk to were you involved with them as they thought through that?
Unfortunately, I was not. That was all with the project manager. I'm the hands-on keys girl.
I know that I don't know how they've managed into the architecture, but I know that right now, again, because we initially had set it up with a very, very specific, goal of saying we want this to be the place that supporters go to update their credit card first. Now that we're doing a little bit more of a 2.0, I'm guessing that they're going to incorporate it into sort of maybe a little bit more so it's more easily, findable. But it is a little bit of that, like, it's a login area, obviously. So you're kind of like, I certainly would say you can kind of say members login over here, and you have something like hyper nav or footer nav and sort of make it so you can kind of say, great, obviously you're going to push people there through email. But then if you're thinking, like, they're just on my website, I want to make sure that if they didn't get that email, I want them to also know about it. So making it an easy, findable place, but not too, kind of in the main nav, because it's sort of for a subset of people. So you do need to think a little bit about that, like navigation and the architecture and where that would be set up. But that's a good point. I don't know what that specific one, but those are good things to think about, right? About how you drive a little bit of traffic there, but you don't want it to be too front and center, because then there's that login, which you want. But that sometimes as people get sort of like, this isn't part of the main website because I can't just get there without logging in. So you have to sort of think about that. But my suggestions off the cuff would be certainly sort of like either a hyper nav up top or maybe something in a footer that and then you can kind of guide people, even in emails, sort of say, great, don't forget to top right login as sort of a intuitive place for people to typically go to do, members log in to an area. That's a good point.
I also think it's important to think about the kind of organization it is, because Huntsman has their main website covers a lot of areas that go beyond just the fundraising arm of it. And so I think that's where it kind of gets hard. And so I think that's a place where I think you do have to rely on the communications you do with the people that are actually supporting you in the ways that are managed in Engaging Networks.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's easy.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Other charities, like programs and science and all of this comes into account. It's how to make it fit.
Yeah.
Okay, where do I put it?
Yeah.
To balance that, there's a lot of different program areas, and you're like, and of course, in my experience, a lot of the development teams, I was like, this is the most important thing, and then the program people are like, no, like I don't want to just like inundate everybody with fundraising too much all the time. So it's a balance, and those are the conversations to have internally. But certainly, the beauty here is obviously you can send out these emails, and they are just able to go right there, log in, and you can even send that like login enabled, emails and stuff like that, so they can just push right in and update their stuff. So, and it again allows you to send out those more targeted emails so that you can sort of say, we know you have these interests. It is one of those too, like you say, there's a balance between asking for preference, topics, areas, like are you going to send out emails based on those preferences that people pick? So I've like way back when I was at Planned Parenthood, we had that same struggle where we'd be like, I'm going to ask people different interest areas that they have, but am I really ready to send different email content based on those preference areas? So be careful sometimes about asking too much and then not being able to deliver, because that actually just causes some frustration on this part of the user, because they go, great, I only want to hear about, whatever, ovarian cancer or whatever, and then they're getting all these emails that are about all these other types of cancer, and you're like, why did you ask me about my interest areas if you're not able to at least give me some indication that you're able to send me some content based on my interest areas? So you can do it, but I guess I would also just sort of, caution a little bit of like, be ready to at least provide some. It doesn't have to be all tailored, but at least so every so often, giving them some of those subject areas that are specific to the interest areas that they've indicated for you, because they don't want to just be like, you asked, and then you don't pay any attention. So it's important so that they understand you're hearing and responding to the information that you're actually asking them for. Okay, great. So Supporter Hub, anything else on the Supporter Hub? Has anybody implemented the Supporter Hub yet and really loves it, or struggling?
Nothing.
Nobody? It's a big one, and I think it's a great idea, and I think I've heard a lot of organizations struggle with giving, it's almost like this funny thing to say, I'm going to give my users like overrate power. And so you're kind of like, wait, I don't want you to have too much control. Hold on. So it's like a great idea, and in theory, it's a nice idea. But I do feel like sometimes organizations have a little bit of a struggle with giving their users the ability to sort of overwrite data in their database of record. And they work really hard to keep that up to date and keep it clean. And then you kind of go, oh my God, I'm going to open this up to my users, and maybe that's a little bit of nerve-wracking. Like, and then they're going to, could potentially kind of wreak havoc with my data. And it's just it's a little bit of a leap of faith sometimes to take it and let the supporters have access and control. And you can limit it. Sometimes you think, I just want them to be able to update their credit card information. I don't want them, and so you can kind of do some deciding about what you want them to be able to access and what you want them to be able to update, and maybe do some baby steps as you're getting more comfortable with it. Okay, so after we did the donation form and Supporter Hub, we knew that on their short list was also sort of creating a DIY peer-to-peer event. So Huntsman does a lot of physical events across the country, which we'll talk about in a minute, but they knew that there are lots of reasons why, and they heard, and we also recommended that a DIY is great to have as well, and so you don't have to be reliant on either physical proximity to a physical event, anybody's ability to participate in a physical event, all sorts of reasons why you might be limiting access into sort of this level of engagement with your organization. We always encourage people having sort of a DIY event. It's evergreen, it's up all year, you can kind of, tailor it. You can have a bunch of different reasons why people can give, instead of like their birthday and some of these things you see here, graduations or things like that. So it doesn't have to be, even for an organization that is very reliant on big dollars raised through physical events, they knew that there was a good reason, and were compelled to say, great, next up, we know we want to kind of get up a custom DIY. So I'll let Lesley talk about the process of the DIY.
So, the events they had been doing up to this point, the physical events, had all used the kind of out-of-the-box layout and look for the events. They had a banner image, there was a black toolbar that had the search in it, like they all looked the same. And so they really wanted this to be unique, and they also wanted to be able to give users information about how the program would work. And so we designed for them this
the
these pages.
Yeah.
So we had the how it works, and then we did these really visually compelling pieces to draw them into the different ways that they could participate. And again, we didn't do that much in terms of the tool itself. Like, the tool is very robust. It's great because with the different types of participation, so the honor a caregiver versus celebrate a birthday, you're able to create custom messages for each of those based on that choice, so that you're not having a, let's celebrate kind of language for somebody that's honoring someone that's passed away. So it's really a great tool, and we just wanted to take it kind of the next step up and make it so that it was really engaging and really easy for people to use. We did a little bit of, we did a little customization of the interior page just to clean it up a little bit and make it a little bit easier to find things, a little more visually appealing.
Yeah, we sort of tightened up the content.
Yep.
Brought stuff up a little bit higher.
Remove some unnecessary pieces on the sidebar donation. But again, really we used a lot of the stuff that's built into the tool, but Huntsman hadn't really had time to dig into it. So we were able to help them understand sort of all of the opportunities that they might have been missing, and then put it all together in a really nice package for them.
Okay. So basically, yes, we knew that as part of their goals here and part of the DIY was obviously saying, great, this is sort of a new idea for us. We don't want to lose our physical events. So that's great, Huntsman 140. They have all these other ones, the Pink Park City, which we'll talk about. So at the bottom of the, on the DIY, we still have a rotating section there that they can update very easily that calls out any upcoming physical events. So we don't want to lose the opportunity to have anyone that's going to come and give or be interested in giving on the DIY to know about some of the other upcoming events. That's still their kind of bread and butter, is the physical events. But so they wanted to make sure that was there. And obviously we just allowed to do the social sign-in to register for these events, which obviously just makes it super easy for folks and just takes out a step if they don't want to create an additional login to participate in the DIY. Anything else on this one?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. So then as this was sort of the end of that first kind of list of things that they wanted to do, is at least get this going. And so when we did sort of highlight sort of this, this sort of design was very different and a much more sort of like, engaging and sort of eye-catching and everything. And so when we rolled this out for Huntsman, some of the other teams, again, we'll talk about this Pink Park City, saw it and said, we want to update the design now for the Pink Park City in particular was sort of the next event that came up, and make it a lot more visually sort of compelling and update the look and feel of it and just make it feel a little bit more modern. And so the next stage was to sort of start doing some of their physical event peer-to-peers in the Engaging Networks platform. And then this one is where we took the functionality quite a bit further. So that DIY one was sort of just updating the look and feel to the standard functionality. Then we kind of said, okay, great, let's go back and do a little bit more discovery. Where are places where we can push this functionality even further in the DIY platform, going back into their more physical events. So this is where Lesley kind of went to town
so
on the Pink Park City one.
Again, we were pretty lucky because the person we dealt with who runs this event had a really clear idea about what he wanted to see and kind of how the look and feel he wanted for this event. He wanted it a lot more youthful, he wanted it really vibrant, and he wanted to really feature different things besides just the straight registration. And so we had great discovery calls with him. Our designer went in and created what I think is one of the better designs we've had. And we worked through, we actually have a number of pages, so we started off with a lot of really good imagery, that banner images across the whole page. We had the really clear call to action. Those are the two things they need people to do, are register and donate. So those were very clear, which again, the out-of-the-box tool just doesn't come like that. Like it's not, it has those things, but it's not as clear and easy to do. So then they had this video, and so we set it up so that it was actually a light box, that when they click on the video, it pops up the light box. We did some customization as much as we could. We ran into a little bit of trouble with that, but did some customization of their thermometer to make it really, again, visually appealing. They actually upped their goal for this event quite a bit, and so we really wanted to make that front and center.
All right.
So I think they more than doubled their goal for this 2019 event.
Right, it's in like 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's coming up. It is coming up. Yep.
Right away.
Yep. They wanted to really highlight the swag, so we did a little fancy hover effect on the swag for them. We had the rotating list of their sponsors, because in the past they just had basically every sponsor on the page. At the bottom of the page there was like 25 logos all jammed at the bottom of the page. So just little things like this that we could do for them to just make it a much more compelling, easy to find the things you need to find kind of page.
Yeah. I don't know. Sorry, that I didn't know this one had a thing too. So
yeah,
it just
it shows you how that slides.
Yeah,
we also went through and tried to match up all of the interior elements design-wise. So we really tried to get all the buttons, and it's a lot of pink, but that's, I mean, I was like, I don't ever want to see pink again when I got done with this one, but it matched their branding, and that was really important. Yeah. And so we just went through and tried to match that through. They had done some really good work for their style guide, and they had a lot of offline materials, and so we were able to take those materials and implement them on the site. So it worked out, I think worked out really well. We also did a lot of work for them on their interior pages. So we went through and created some custom buttons so that all they had to do was, put the code in, and they could have buttons that were either centered or, 2 or 3 across, that sort of thing. Because when we launched this for them back in December, they were still kind of gathering pieces. Like, there's a lot of lodging issues and logistical issues that they were going to be adding in as they went along. So we put together all these kind of code snippets so that they could manage it themselves as they move forward. And so if I can go to the next one. We also did an expanding and collapsing FAQ section so that they could have, this big long list of FAQs, but not have it just a big long list of text. Like somebody could just read through the topics and expand it to look at the one that was relevant to them at that time. And then we've also put in we've used the marketing automation to do a couple emails for folks when they reach 50% of their goal and 100% of their goal. So this is where we've crossed over the tools from peer-to-peer, which are really kind of separate from the page builder tools, but this is a place where they're crossing over, and I know that the goal is to get more crossover between these in terms of data. And so we help them set up some emails that go out to folks as they're reaching 50% of their goal and 100% of their goal. And emails are triggered based on that.
Right. And we're thinking, we're going to think about some different, even other milestones potentially.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a good crossover between the email and the page builder side and then peer-to-peer. And I know that Engaging Networks is working really hard to try to bring some of that functionality together too, for exactly those types of things, like, we should, give them more incentives along the way, and a little more merging in that specific customized, like, you've only raised $100 and the event's in 3 weeks, you better get your butt in gear, whatever. A little bit more motivating, trying to utilize the tools, trying to, again, make that a more personalized experience for each of the participants, whether, you're individually participating or across your team. Mm-hmm. So this one was sort of the time that we went gangbusters on sort of pushing the peer-to-peer platform a little bit further. And then again, some of the other teams across the Huntsman in particular were like, yeah, we want those things now in ours. So now we're in the midst of starting to work on some of their other physical events, updating the look and feel and updating some of this functionality. I think we'll probably end up taking it further with the next round. That's kind of how we're doing it. It's a little bit like, okay, learn, get people again familiar with it, comfortable with it, and then sort of try to take it a little step further. So that was sort of like we just launched this in December, you said?
Yeah.
And so, we're, again, sort of learning as we go. But there was a whole bunch of stuff that we did there. We had helped them kind of, again, start from basically, not scratch, but sort of, again, starting out on a space with a brand new platform, being like, what can we do? What can we accomplish? And setting out some goals at the beginning, and trying to say, you know what, you haven't done some of this stuff before. So we can look at industry best practices. We can look at things what we would know from work we've done with other clients and give you some thoughts about where you could set some goals. But really the best thing we can do is just plug in some numbers, set some goals, and then run it, and then come back and measure, and then sort of tweak and measure, and come back and say, great, 2018 was the first full year that they did a bunch of these programs in the platform. So now we have a bunch of data from 2018 that lets us set, that was maybe your baseline, your benchmark, and then we can kind of say, great, what can we do to tweak it, continue to add some of the functionality in, and push it up maybe just a little bit higher, see what we can do, how can we push ourselves to improve, give us a 10, 15, 25% increase this year. Let's see what feels realistic. Because again, everybody's list is a little bit different, so you kind of got to see and you got to test with your list. But certainly there were a few successes that we saw, and we're excited to see where things are going to go for them in 2019. And then lastly, I think one of the things we just wanted to show here was it's really important when you're kind of chugging along with a client and you're doing all these different things, especially kind of moving into a new platform, is to stop and say, remember, we had all these lofty goals. We helped you guys sort of prioritize your list again, coming back to sort of thinking about you wanted to do all these things. Let's look back and take a moment to recognize all that we have done. Because I think that's one of the big things I feel like a lot of clients also just keep plunging forward. You keep having your to-do list. You keep thinking about the next thing. Super important to stop, have the win, live in the gain, have a moment where you can say, hey, look at all the stuff we did do over the last 12, 18 months. And look at all the successes we've had. Look at all the lessons we've learned. We had all these different areas that we wanted, that we set out. And look, we actually were able to accomplish these things. And sort of give your team a moment to give yourself a pat on the back. It's hard work. It's a lot when you're kind of starting out on a platform and you have all these different areas you want to see successes in. One of the things we really try to do with our clients a lot is to force folks to sort of, calm down, slow down, and do these gains, and live in the gain, have the success moment to sort of see what worked well, recognize areas that still need improvement, because everything can always use a tweak or two, but to sort of say, great, we did this, and going back on things that you did a year and a half ago, is there room for improvement even in something that we pushed forward and pushed out and are seeing great successes on? Do we want to come back? Or do we want to tweak it? Do we want to try different layouts on the newsletter, do side-by-sides now that we've got that under our belts? Where are there some small tweaks that we can continue to make as we do other maybe bigger pushes into other areas of the tool? So we kind of did this with them, kind of did the whole look back, and then we started work on setting up some goals for 2019. And we're excited to see where things can go. Anything else you want to add?
No, I just think they've been a great client to work with because they really were agreeable to step back and sort of set those list of priorities. And I think we've really been able to build a strong foundation for them. Mm-hmm. And kind of put tools in their hands too, because that's something that's important to us as a company, is to give people the ability to manage things where they can. Mm-hmm.
Right. So we got 3.0 on the docket now to try to figure out sort of what's next, going back to the parking lot, thinking about the laundry list, helping them prioritize yet again, sort of saying what's next on the docket. And happy to answer questions about any of the things that we did. This is sort of just a good overview of the different areas. I don't know if anybody has any questions about anything specifically about the pieces that we built or anything about the program that we did with Huntsman. It's a lot of info, but it is our goal to try and help sort of a big tool and lots of depth in each section and area of the tool become a little bit more bite-sized. You can kind of bite off pieces and then see successes in different areas. So, hi, Clint. Okay, great. And if anybody has any questions, we're here, hanging out. We'll be around during the next session. We gave you guys 10 breathing minutes between this and the next session. Oops. All right. Cool. Thanks.